This is an R-rated film that still can't be shown in China, even before its official release. Multiple countries had already banned it outright, and in the few places where it did hit theaters, security was so tight they brought in armed helicopters fearing that some viewers might be driven to violence after watching it. People used to say, "There's no Joker after Heath Ledger," but this film shattered that belief. It delivers a chilling reminder of just how terrifying it can be when a quiet man finally snaps. So let's dive right in. The story begins in Gotham City, where Arthur works as a clown performer. In the dressing room, he paints on a smile, literally forcing his face into a grin with his fingers. Just like his mom taught him, always smile. But one tear betrays what he really feels. Life's hard for Arthur, but deep down, he still wants to make people laugh. His dream? Becoming a stand-up comedian. But reality's cruel. Arthur suffers from uncontrollable fits of laughter, a condition that makes regular jobs impossible. So he sticks with low-paying gigs, holding signs on street corners, just barely scraping by. Then, one day, while doing his usual sidewalk routine, a bunch of punks snatch his sign and run off. Afraid he'll get docked pay, Arthur chases them, darting into traffic without a second thought. He begs passers-by for help, but no one lifts a finger. Back then, no one gave a damn about a clown. Eventually, he corners the group in an alley. But instead of getting his sign back, he gets the beating of a lifetime. They knock him down and come back for more, kicking him while he's helpless on the ground. Lying there, bruised and broken, Arthur can't understand why the world keeps treating him like this. But that's Gotham, a city drowning in darkness where justice doesn't exist. And unfortunately for Arthur, things are about to get worse. When he drags himself back to the shop, exhausted and bruised, he tells his boss what happened. He expects sympathy, maybe even backup. Instead, his boss scolds him and demands that he pay for the missing sign. Arthur forces a smile. He can't afford to lose this job. Later, he vents his rage the only way he can, kicking over a trash can in a back alley. That garbage can? It's the only thing in Gotham he has power over. He collapses beside it, curling up on the cold ground. And in that moment, Arthur is no different from the trash around him. Not long after, Arthur shows up at the community center for a mandatory psych evaluation. Because of his history of mental illness and past hospitalization, the government requires him to attend regular check-ins. His therapist tells him to keep a journal, but when she flips through it and sees the line, "I just hope my death makes more sense than my life," she realizes Arthur's condition is getting worse. She suggests he be readmitted, but Arthur begs her not to send him back to that cold, sterile hospital. Instead, he asks for stronger meds. The doctor ups his prescription to 7 different drugs, but even that can only numb the pain, not erase it. Despite everything, Arthur still tries to be kind. On the bus ride home, he notices a young black boy staring at him. Arthur pulls a funny face, and the kid laughs, but the mother catches him in the act.
Can you please stop bothering my kid?
I wasn't bothering.
Just stop.
Panicked, Arthur's uncontrollable laughter kicks in. He clamps his hands over his mouth, his body trembling as he tries to suppress it, but the laughter keeps escaping. Noticing her wary, disgusted look, he fumbles in his pocket and hands her a card. She takes it, frowning. One side apologizes, the other explains his condition, a neurological disorder that causes sudden, uncontrollable laughter. Even after reading it, she recoils, like he's contagious. Her eyes are full of contempt. The strange laughter continues, drawing stares from every corner of the bus. Eventually, the fed-up driver yells at him to get off. Arthur is kicked off, humiliated. Again, as he walks alone through the streets of Gotham, all he can think is, why does everyone hate me? And if life wasn't cruel enough, Arthur has a sick mother to care for. Years ago, she worked as a maid in the mansion of Thomas Wayne, Gotham's richest man. She still writes him letters, hoping he'll remember her kindness and help them out. Arthur knows better. The rich don't care about people like them, but he keeps the truth from his mother, letting her hold on to hope. At night, they sit together watching the Murray Franklin show. Arthur stares at the charming host with wide-eyed admiration. He dreams of one day standing on that stage, making people laugh, finally being seen. The next day at work, Arthur's co-worker Randall hears about him getting attacked. He tells him he needs to stand up for himself, then casually hands him a paper bag. Arthur opens it. Inside is a revolver. People like Arthur, mentally unstable, aren't allowed to carry guns.
No one has to know. And you can pay me back some other time. You know you're my boy.
Arthur doesn't say no. And just like that, the gun that should have never been in his hand sets off a chain of events that will change everything. That evening, Arthur runs into a black woman and her young daughter neighbors from his floor. He stands silently in the elevator, awkward and withdrawn, unsure how to interact. The elevator suddenly jerks. The woman cracks a joke about the building falling apart, then makes a funny face at Arthur. To her surprise, he smiles back.
Hey!
That small gesture of kindness warms him in ways he can't explain, but the good vibes don't last. Arthur's next gig is at a children's hospital he's hired to perform for a group of sick kids. Everything's going fine, until his gun slips out of his costume and clatters to the floor. He picks it up quickly, but the damage is done. The room freezes. Terrified eyes lock onto him. The second he finishes the show, his phone rings. It's his boss, furious. He demands to know why Arthur brought a gun to a kid's hospital. Arthur tries to play it off. It's just a prop. He lies, but the boss cuts him off. He knows the truth. Turns out, it was Randall, the very guy who gave him the gun, who ratted him out. Claimed Arthur had begged him for a weapon, and just like that, Arthur is fired. No job, no support, nothing. But fate isn't done with him yet. Cut to Arthur riding the subway home that night. 3 drunk Wall Street types are harassing a woman across the aisle. The only other person on the train is Arthur. She looks to him for help, but he's emotionally wrecked. He just got fired. He's in no shape to play the hero. And then, the laughter hits. Arthur's uncontrollable laughter breaks the tension, loud, bizarre, and out of place. The guys notice. What the hell is this clown laughing at? The woman takes the chance to slip away. Now Arthur's all alone. His laughter echoes through the train car. They think he's laughing at them. The ringleader starts singing "Sin and the Clowns" as he approaches Arthur, slowly, menacingly. Arthur's eyes show a flicker of fear, but also a weary understanding, like he knows exactly what's coming. He wants to run, to scream, to disappear, but his body is frozen.
So, buddy, tell us what's so funny.
He tries to explain, reaching for the card that explains his condition. Too late. One of them snatches his bag and starts mocking him. A punch to the face drops him to the floor. They kick him, over and over, beating him like the world always has. And then, something inside him snaps. Years of humiliation, abuse, betrayal, it all erupts. The last one makes it off the train and stumbles into the subway station. Arthur follows, calm now, almost serene. Arthur stands there, breathing heavily. For a second, he's terrified by what he's done. He runs through the damp, dim-lit streets of Gotham. He slips into a grimy public bathroom. And there, something changes. His breathing slows. His feet begin to move. Arthur raises his arms and begins to dance, graceful, slow, deliberate. In that eerie, beautiful moment, the Joker is born. Maybe, in all that confusion, Arthur had finally found himself, back home, riding the high of what he'd done. He musters up the courage to visit Sophie, the woman he secretly liked. The next morning, Arthur returns to the office to pack up his things. As he's quietly clearing his desk, the office buzzes with gossip about the subway murders. No one knows that the clown who pulled the trigger is standing right in front of them. The little guy, Gary, offered Arthur a few kind words, genuinely trying to comfort him. But Randall? He mocks Arthur to his face. Turns out, Randall set Arthur up because he wanted to take his place. But by now, Arthur couldn't care less. Arthur doesn't say a word. He just walks out. But moments later, he comes back in.
I forgot to punch out.
Everyone stares. He doesn't say anything, just turns around again and leaves. At the door, he stops and sees the office sign. "Don't forget to smile." The irony hits him like a slap. He pulls out a marker and blacks it out, then walks off with a little bounce in his step. That night, the subway murders make the news. Since Arthur was wearing his clown makeup, the cops still haven't ID'd the shooter, but Thomas Wayne, Gotham's golden boy and mayoral candidate, goes live to give his opinion.
Someone who is envious of those more fortunate than themselves, yet they're too scared to show their own face. Those of us who have made something of our lives will always look at those who haven't as nothing but clowns.
Arthur can't help but laugh. Wayne's statement drips with condescension, exposing how little the rich understand the people suffering at the bottom. But Arthur tunes it out. He still has a dream to become a real stand-up comic. And finally, he gets a shot. It's a small local comedy club. But to Arthur, it's everything. He steps on stage, nervous as hell, and right then, his condition flares up. That painful, out-of-place laughter takes over. He tries to suppress it, fails. Luckily, the audience thinks it's part of his act. They laugh with him, and Sophie, sitting in the crowd, gives him an encouraging look. Arthur powers through awkward, but genuine. By the end, the room's applauding. After the show, he walks home with Sophie. They pass a newsstand. A headline jumps out, "Subway Killer Still at Large." But instead of fear, the story sparks admiration. That sparked a long-suppressed wave of emotion. People began to imitate the clown. To the working class, he became a symbol, a hero. And soon, Gotham was swept up in a full-blown anti-rich movement. Back at home, Arthur's in high spirits. He even dances with his mother. But when his mother reminded him not to forget to mail the letter, Arthur realized she had never given up. Curious, Arthur opens one of her letters. What he reads stuns him. His mother claims that years ago, she and Thomas Wayne were lovers and that Arthur is his illegitimate son. Arthur is floored, desperate for the truth. He confronts his mother. She shuts him out, but eventually admits there was something between them. She even says Thomas made her sign an NDA to cover it up. Arthur's rage boils over. He storms to the Wayne estate and finds a young boy playing near the gate. It's Bruce, Thomas Wayne's son, maybe his own half-brother. Arthur puts on a little magic show, pulling a flower from his sleeve to make the boy smile. But just then, the butler intervenes. During the conversation, Arthur realizes the butler seems to recognize his mother. But then the truth hits hard. The butler coldly tells him, yes, she did work there, but she was fired for having severe delusions. Everything she believed, everything she told Arthur was all in her head.
She was a sick woman.
Don't say that.
Just go. Before you make a fool of yourself.
Thomas Wayne is my father.
The butler smirks, and Arthur snaps, lunging forward, grabbing him by the throat. But when he sees Bruce watching, he lets go. After leaving Thomas's house, Arthur decided to confront his mother and get the truth. But the moment he arrived home, he was stunned to find her being loaded into an ambulance. With no time for questions, Arthur pushed his confusion aside and followed her to the hospital. Thankfully, after emergency treatment, her condition stabilized. While caring for his unconscious mother, aboard, Arthur started watching Murray's late-night talk show, his favorite. Then, something caught his eye. Suddenly, his stand-up clip appeared on the screen. Arthur was frozen, stunned. For a moment, he thought Murray had recognized his hidden talent. But what came next shattered that illusion. Murray had aired the clip to mock him, laughing, ridiculing him in front of millions. Arthur's smile faded. The illusion he had held onto of being seen, respected, validated was gone in an instant. Soon after, Arthur saw crowds on TV protesting in the streets. Earlier, Thomas Wayne had made some inflammatory comments during an interview, sparking outrage among Gotham's lower class. To control the damage, Thomas planned a grand charity gala to help the poor. Arthur saw his chance. He snuck into the event, determined to confront Thomas face to face. After searching the venue, he finally found Thomas alone in a bathroom. But when Arthur brought up his mother, Thomas didn't just deny everything, he dropped a bombshell. Arthur wasn't his son. In fact, he wasn't even Penny's biological child. Arthur was adopted. Thomas went on to claim that Penny suffered from severe delusional psychosis and had even been institutionalized at Arkham Asylum. Arthur refused to believe it. He lashed out, claiming Thomas was lying to cover his tracks. The stress and disbelief overwhelmed him, and suddenly, he started laughing uncontrollably, his signature, involuntary laughter.
You think...
Shaken, Arthur returned home and did something inexplicable. He climbed into the fridge, perhaps searching for numbness, or maybe warmth, in a life that had gone cold. The next day, Arthur received a call. It was from his idol Murray Franklin. Turns out, Arthur's awkward comedy clip had generated buzz, and the show wanted to invite him on. Arthur knew the real reason they wanted to humiliate him on live TV, but still, he agreed. Before stepping onto the big stage, though, he had one final thing to do. He went to Arkham Asylum to uncover the truth himself. Pretending to be doing research, he convinced a clerk to look up Penny's medical records. Sure enough, The file confirmed everything: severe delusional disorder, narcissistic tendencies, and even a history of endangering her adopted child. At that moment, the clerk hesitated, clearly withholding something. When Arthur pressed him, the man refused to share more without Penny's consent. Arthur's expression darkened. He suddenly grabbed the file and bolted down the fire escape. What he read next crushed him completely. Penny really had been mentally ill. Thomas Wayne wasn't his father. Young Bruce wasn't his brother. And Arthur himself? Just an abandoned child Penny had adopted long ago. The truth hit like a wrecking ball. Arthur's last thread of hope snapped.
You also stood by. Your son was found tied to a radiator in your filthy apartment, malnourished with multiple bruises across his body and severe trauma to his head.
I never heard him cry. He's always been such a happy little boy.
And in that moment, Joker was fully born. After reading the file, Arthur's last line of mental defense crumbled. His only remaining hope in life vanished into nothing. In that moment, the Joker inside him fully awakened. After stepping out of the elevator, Arthur didn't go home instead. He went straight to Sophie's apartment. He sat silently on her living room couch, as if this place was his only refuge. But when Sophie saw him, she was visibly shocked, like she had no idea who he was. And in that instant, Arthur realized the painful truth. It had all been in his head. He gave Sophie a quiet look, then walked out without saying a word. Back home, Arthur burst into uncontrollable laughter, trying to mask the ache inside. From downstairs came the sound of an ambulance. Sophie's fate was now uncertain, but likely grim. The next morning, Arthur returned to the hospital where Penny was staying. But this time, he wasn't there to visit. He was there to make the most important decision of his life. He pulled the pillow from beneath her head and firmly pressed it over her face. Arthur once believed life was a tragedy, but now, he saw it for what it really was, a comedy. And if that was the case, he was going to play it to the end. As Penny took her final breath, Arthur felt something he never had before: relief. Back at home, Arthur dyed his hair green and stood in front of the mirror, painting on his clown makeup. Maybe, just maybe, the Joker was the only version of himself that ever truly made sense. That's when he noticed an old photo of Penny in her youth. On the back, scribbled in handwriting, were the words, "Love your smile," signed by Thomas Wayne. But Arthur no longer cared. He couldn't tell fantasy from reality anymore. Nor did he want to. He just wanted to be himself. Right then, the doorbell rang. Arthur casually grabbed a pair of scissors from the drawer and called out, "Hang on." Before opening the door, standing there were two of his co-workers. Arthur didn't think much of it and welcomed them in. They had come to check on him after hearing about his mother. Arthur said he was doing fine. Randall pretended to care, but his real motive was to ask about the gun. Arthur had long grown sick of Randall's fake concern. While he was distracted, Arthur pulled out the hidden scissors and killed him without hesitation. Gary, horrified, froze in fear, but Arthur didn't hurt him. Instead, he calmly told Gary to make sure he watched the Murray Franklin show that night and let him go. Gary, still trembling, made his way to the door only to realize he couldn't reach the lock because of his height.
Over, can you get him?
Arthur laughed. He actually laughed out loud. Then he walked over, opened the door, and whispered something to Gary as he let him leave.
Gary?
Yeah.
You were the only one that was ever nice to me. Yeah.
Not long after, Arthur put on a crimson suit and headed to the set of the Murray Franklin show. The Arthur Fleck the world once knew was gone. In his place stood the Joker, reborn and on his way. He gave us one of the film's most iconic moments, a haunting, liberating dance that marked his full transformation. Cut to Arthur arriving at the talk show studio. The show begins as usual, and just as he expected, Murray starts mocking him. When Murray asks him to tell a joke, Arthur pulls out his worn notebook. Murray launched into his performance, but Arthur remained completely unresponsive. He had originally come here to end his own life. Live on air, a final act of rebellion against Thomas Wayne and Gotham's cruelty toward the poor. But when Arthur sees the line in his notebook, "I just hope my death makes more sense than my life," something inside him shifts. He changes his mind. Instead of turning the gun on himself, he makes a chilling confession. He is the clown behind the subway murders. At first, Murray thinks it's all part of the act.
And why should we believe you?
I got nothing left to lose. Nothing can hurt me anymore. My life is nothing but a comedy.
But then Arthur drops the mask completely, launching into a brutal condemnation of Gotham's elite, calling out Murray for inviting him just to make fun of him for ratings. For sport, Murray fires back, calling Arthur a murderer, a lunatic, a complete joke. The argument escalates until Arthur pulls the trigger. With Murray dead, Arthur finally feels something he's never felt before: freedom. He doesn't run, he's arrested, escorted out in handcuffs. But the chaos he sparked on live TV is already igniting the city. Gotham erupts in riots. On the way to the police station, a truck suddenly slammed into the squad car. A crowd of clown-masked followers pulls Arthur from the wreckage. As the cheers around him grew louder, Arthur slowly rose to his feet. He had been reborn. Back to Arthur. He's now confined to Arkham Asylum. A psychiatrist asks him questions, but he says nothing. It doesn't matter anymore. Truth, lies, delusion. He had completed his transformation. He walked out of the room, leaving red footprints behind him, and with that, the film came to an end. Childhood trauma, social rejection, a broken home, betrayal by those closest to him. These were the shadows that followed Arthur every step of the way. They say a happy childhood can heal a lifetime, but for the unfortunate, it takes a lifetime to heal from childhood. Arthur was once just another victim, and maybe, just maybe, if someone had shown him a little kindness, things might have turned out differently. But life doesn't do what ifs. Just like in an avalanche, not a single snowflake thinks it's to blame. Human nature is the fragile contract we sign between angels and monsters. The above is just my personal take. Thanks for bearing with me if it didn't hit the mark. See you in the next one.